0, 1. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr Berge and I'm your host. If you're not familiar with my work or would like to learn more about it, head on over to AIM8 International, the first tennis lab of its kind worldwide that is centered on delivering top 10 tennis rankings and is 100% backed by science. I'm the author of 14 books behind multiple theories and have been an elite coach for over 20 years and work with athletes around the world, Europe, the United States through Australia. I'm also the world's leading authority in this space with my research coupled with my extensive coaching background, being responsible for landmark findings to deliver the next generation of player. With new foundations this season of my two latest releases, my tennis black book, Federer, Nadal, Serena, Djokovic, and my brand new release, my tennis workbook, this season is like none other before. So as always, buckle in and enjoy the ride. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Top 10 Tennis. If you've been with us for some time now, thank you so much. You know what we're all about. If you are new, welcome. I really would encourage you to track back to earlier episodes, or even better, it's not my latest release anymore. This one came out in December, and part 2, if you like. So my tennis workbook came out less than 2 weeks ago. It is so fresh that I don't even have a copy of it yet, but I can't wait to share that with you. You can access it though on AIM International or Amazon, so irrespective of where you're based in the world. This one though, whether you are new or not, is absolutely the one to start with. Yes, there are those earlier releases. You'll see all my text in the background. But this one, I'm so proud of it, and the one that's just come out, because it'll walk you through, actually, depending on your level. If you're a top 10 player, what level you should be at. So what techs really you should be focusing on to amplify your game to take to the next level. If you are in that first decade of play, whether you're a high performance player, you're still developing those fundamentals, the key techs to look at for that. Something I don't often draw attention to, you'll see the very big one, or one of the big ones in the background there. And it's actually termed I am your tennis coaching guru. And the byline, it's a bit long, but it's around 10 years of play, 20 years in there towards a top 10 ranking, etc. And so you look for guru on AMA and it'll take you right there. What's really important, or why I'm just bringing this one up briefly, is that it actually guides you from a coaching standpoint. I can't be there with each and every one of you, although I do like to think that once you really do crack, whether it's the top 20, top 30, and you need that extra nudge towards the top 10 or top 10, you're looking at that Grand Slam, etc., I'm right here. But as you're walking or making your way through the pathway, the long game, terms on AIM International, the Guru book, so I'm Your Tennis Coaching Guru, breaks down key lessons for you to work with your coach, your sparring partner. So depending where you're at, key elements that you can look at building into your game. If you're a parent or a coach out there, it's essentially your Bible, without needing to do the additional planning for those first 10 years of play. If you are a player, not too sure about what coach is right for you, you want to do more of your training at home, it's something you can work with or read your way through as well to plan your own lessons. And it's really cool. Believe it or not, all of those lessons in there I have conducted myself when I was predominantly on court. So a lot of my work when I was touring, whether it was Australia, internationally, so through my times through Europe, the States, etc., or running my own center, putting those programs together for the high performance athletes, the elite athletes, etc. So it works. It is literally, it's been applied and integrated. And those of you who are not familiar then also, is that's when I knew something was missing. So I took a bit of a sidestep. And that's where I found myself really doing the research, finding the data around this. And so I got the best of both worlds, bringing together my extensive coaching background. Then, obviously, master's, PhD, the rest is history with these texts, because I thought, how can I help more than that one player, more than, those 100 athletes that I had at my club, or over the years, 400 that I was overseeing. But how can I really have more of a meaningful impact? And the answer I had was bringing this to life for you, so you knew what you could do, but also how to better work with coaches and parents out there to put everyone involved on the right track. So that's where all of, I think, this work has evolved, come to, but I absolutely, or my roots are in being on court with each and every one of you. There's just not 1,000 of me. So when you are ready and you've completed that 10-year pathway, potentially your initial 20 years of play. So if you start at 5, 7, maybe in your mid-late 20s, for example, or it could be that 10, a little bit more, then you're starting to peak in, late teens, 20s, and all of a sudden you find yourself on a really steep trajectory towards a top 30, towards a top 20. Please do. That's what AIM International is there for. That's what I try my best to reserve that time for. So when you are ready, and those of you, however, who are not there yet, but you'd like to work towards that, that's where these books come in. And obviously all of these episodes and everything available on AIM International, etc. All right, so that's enough, I think, for our intro today. I do like to share something a little bit different each and every episode. We have a bit to cover this week, but not as much as typically, because believe it or not, this is the first week, I believe, this year where the WTA Tour has a little bit of a break, which is, we don't normally see that. I do believe the Billie Jean King Cup, however, is underway. So that is something that I think will be played over the coming, days. I'm just checking, because we are live, who's playing who. And it looks like there's a little bit of a different format in contrast to, say, the Davis Cup, where they do predominantly give us more of a draw to look at. So that is, we may have a peek at that as we go into today's episode. But we only have a couple of, we have last week's results on the WTA Tour to go over. ATP Tour's over there, but we have Monte Carlo that's underway this week. It is just kicked off. So as far as Billie Jean King Cup is concerned, it's not looking like we're going to have too much to go over, because play has not commenced. So we can have a look later on who's going to potentially be playing who, etc. But play, I don't think, is going to kick off until the end of the week. So we will potentially review that then in next week's episode. All right, so WTA Tour's here, ATP Tour's there, just double checking, so setting the scene for you to know what to expect for today's episode. But we do have some interesting ranking insights, correlations, etc. And since the WTA Tour has a bit of a reprieve this week, we can actually look more at Monte Carlo as well. And let's see how that plays out. So all right. Charleston, WTA Tour. Those of you who are not familiar, there has been a change in the rankings literally in the last 24 hours. Courtesy of the results in Charleston, so I won't spoil it. Last week's episode, I do believe we went over the initial first round results, or most of them. So I'm going to skip all the way through to the second round of 32 results. Right, so Pegula, number 1 seed, over Sharmanovic, love and 3. Tomljanovic actually upset Stearns here. She was the 16th seed. Very good win for 1 and 4. Ostapenko, good win over Chaiko, 5 and 2. We've got Collins, 7th seed, over Montgomery, 3 and 1. This was a big one actually. Zhang over Sakari. Sakari had to go through first round. Zhang with the win there, 4 and 1. I think the biggest thing here is Sakari, I believe, this time last year. Yes, she was inside the top 10, but I think she made the quarterfinals, semi-finals in Charleston last year. So unfortunately, she's taken a bit more of a drop in the rankings. I think it's the lowest ranking in probably the best part of the last 3-4 seasons, maybe even more. All right, Mertens over Gracheva, 3 and 4. Alexandrova over Lee, 3 and love. Schneider over Polonina Kudermetova, 3 and 2. And Anisimova over, I want to think it's Veronica Kudermetova, 2 and 2. And then we've got Putintseva over Zhang, 7 and 1, 6 and 1, so 7-6-6-1. Kruger over Volnetsa, 3 and 6 there. And Navarro, good win there over Bitips, 4 and 3. Kazatkina, this was her first match actually representing Australia, which it's a bit exciting. It's very cool because all of a sudden we have not had a female player on the cusp of the top 10 since Ash Barty, and so we know that's a couple of years ago now. So it's a bit cool there that we automatically get that, but obviously we do have Alex de Minaur top 10 as far as Aussies are concerned. Those of you who are not familiar, beyond top 10 tennis, yes, we are based in Australia, so a little bit of a bias there, but not too much. Kenin, good win over Berge. I think this was actually the best win that put Kenin almost on the map for Charleston, because look at it, 6-love, 6-3. We know how well Belinda's been playing, so that has to be one of, I think, Sophia's biggest, best matches that I've seen in some time. Kalinskaya over Bignali, 1 and 4. Keys over Dolhide, 3 and 6. Keys, obviously the second seed here. All right, on to the round of 16. Pegula over Tomljanovic, 3 and 2. What I'm really liking here, let's remember that Pegula made the finals in Miami a couple days prior to Charleston kicking off. So she has gone and gone again. Although keeping in mind, she obviously didn't have as much of a deep run at Indian Wells. So as Sabalenka, for example, so she, a little bit more, I think she had the flexibility to keep playing, in contrast to the likes of, say, a Sabalenka that definitely needed a bit of that time off to prepare for the weeks ahead. All right, Ostapenko was upset by Collins, so this is actually a very good win. I like this from Collins. 7-5, 6-3, 7th and 11th seed respectively. Zhang over Mertens, another good match I'd say for her, because Mertens been playing quite well, and I think we're starting to see Zhang get a couple of matches under her belt, which is what she wants, I think, preparing for the clay court season now. 6-3, 3-6, 6-3. Alexandrova over Schneider. This was, by all accounts, an upset. That said, Alexandrova, even though her ranking's outside the top 20, I think she's around that 30 range. She has been ranked higher previously. And we haven't really seen the best of Schneider, I think, this season. She skyrocketed up the rankings last year. A lot of episodes last season of Beyond Top 10 Tennis shared how well Schneider had been tracking when she was 80 in the world, 60, 30, and really that impressive descent or ascent, depending on, obviously, on your view there. But we're not seeing Schneider yet replicate that same level of play. So a little bit of a performance plateau, but by all accounts, she's still ranked well inside the top 15. Not quite top 10 level just yet. Anisimova over Putintseva, good win here, 4 and 4 to Anisimova. Navarro over Kruger, this was a tight one, 4-6, 6-4, 6-2 to Navarro there. And Kenin with a win over Kazatkina, another back-to-back win there for Kenin. 6-3, 7-6, 9-7 in that tiebreak. But look, a really good win against Benchik, very good win against Kazatkina. She's just been setting herself up, and I'm really impressed how Kenin has been playing, or how she's played in Charleston. All right, upset for Keys here. Kalinskaya over Keys 2 and 4. I think this is one of, if not the best result Kalinskaya has had all season. Ever since she wasn't able to play in Australia, so the Australian Open, then was a bit unwell, hasn't played as consistently, her ranking has taken a hit. So she is not on the cusp of the top 10 like she was. She's been pushed, I believe, outside the top 30 or thereabouts. But this is the type of tennis that got her inside the top 20, inside the top 15. If she's able to continue that type of level of play, I think in the next 2, 3, 4 months, she very well could break back into the top 20 and relatively, I'll say, sit comfortably there. All right, on to the quarterfinals now. And keep in mind, Charleston is the 500. All the others this week, I believe, were 125 events. So this is the one big one on the WTA Tour this week. ATP Tour is a different story. They were all 250s. Just one big on the WTA, and then the smaller ones. So a lot of players not in action this week. Just keep in mind, they're having that extra week off. And then this week, because there's no action until the weekend, or say stretched weekend, so I think it's 3-4 days of play for the Billie Jean King Cup. It's an extended break, and a lot of the top players, they really need that to prepare for the clay season, because you need to remember, once the clay season kicks off, there's only 1 week essentially break between, if you're lucky, if you're really lucky, between the grass court season. And there's literally less than 4 weeks between the end of the French Open to the beginning of Wimbledon. And that's really a very small amount of time. So players, when they're able to take just a couple of extra days here or there, they need it. Pegula this week, for example, Kenin this week, for example, taking, I think, the next week, if not more, of a bit of a reprieve will be really, really important. All right, I'm trying not to get too much ahead of myself. Quarterfinals, here we go. Pegula, good win over Kenin, but look at this scoreline. 1-6, 6-3, 6-love. So what I think those first 2 sets tell me is that, you know, neck and neck those first 2 sets, then Pegula's obviously too good. Collins is not playing that same level of tennis. They got her inside the top 10. Around, well, not quite, but they're about this time last year it started. But this was also a scoreline that suggests Pegula, she's really up to ante this season. I think that finalist result at the US Open gave her so much confidence. And I spoke about it a lot last season, that Pegula's ranking simply wasn't correlating with the top 10. It really wasn't with her results, especially at the Grand Slam level. Turned that around end of season, obviously, with that US Open finalist result. And she's been able to maintain a really good level of play and consistency, and equaling her career high ranking this week, which we will get to shortly, is really impressive, but really well deserved. And it really shows that even if you're having a bit of an off season, you really can turn that around. And I think that's an important note for Sakari to remember. Azarenka too, a couple of players taking a hit in the rankings, but all it takes is finding that momentum again, finding those 8 keys, solidifying them into your game, and then go from there. All right, I'm dropping down quarterfinals. Alexandrova, good win over Zhang, 1 and 4. Look, this is really interesting because, again, quarterfinals at a 500 event, Zhang is a top 10 player. Alexandrova, she's not, although she's seeded 9. But this is the type of result you want that top 10 player to push through. And so Zhang's finding herself in a similar situation that Pegula was this time last season, not correlating with that ranking. Zhang is without a doubt susceptible to being pushed outside the top 10. As far as her results are concerned, she really isn't correlating with the top 10 ranking. Let's see how she performs on clay. I'm interested to see, because this time last year as well, she had a bit of a off season. She was a finalist in Australia, then she really wasn't performing. And then the end of the season, she really performed with that gold medal and then playing really good tennis. So she doesn't have that many points to defend, I think, over the next 2-3 months. And then all of a sudden she will again. But I think it's important now to see if she can set herself up. If she sets herself up well, she could potentially be in a position to have a deep run at the French Open. But I'm not seeing too much yet. And I'm only keeping in mind how well she played at the Olympics, which was after the French Open. So she really didn't have that to go off. In contrast to, say, Swiatek winning the French Open and then falling just short. Bit of burnout, I would say, there, falling to Zheng, obviously in that semi-finals, playing for the bronze medal. But it's really important when you're weighing up, say, periodization and how that works. So my latest release, again, so my tennis workbook, part 2, if you like, of my tennis black book. There's a bit of work in there around periodization, really planning your season meticulously so you know when you're having those days off, those blocks off. Really important. All right, the other half of the quarterfinals. I'm going to call this a really good upset. Anisimova over Navarro. But look, Anisimova's been playing some really good tennis this season. 7-5, 7-6, 7-1 in that tiebreak. You can see how close this match was. Navarro, look, she's been just slightly bumped outside the top 10, but she definitely deserves, I would say, how she's been tracking in contrast to Zheng, a top 10 ranking. But Anisimova, I think she's going to get very, very close. If not this season, then next season. I could definitely predict with the analytics Anisimova could be ranked inside the top 10. It may very well happen this season. Andreeva's already inside the top 10. Anisimova's playing some really good tennis, but that's a discussion I'm going to leave for later, because I want to see these newish players, then they're not new, but players tracking towards, top 20, in towards the top 10, how they're performing at the Grand Slam level, or more consistently at the 1,000 events as well, because that gives us some really strong indications. All right, the last of the quarterfinals, Kenin and Kalinskaya, 4-3 to Kenin. Again, she's been playing some really great tennis. Semi-finals, Pegula over Alexandrova, 6-2, 2-6, 7-5. That was really tight. And I think Alexandrova, with this result, even though she fell in the semi-finals, she's showing up, and she's showing up deep in these events. I think she's going to be a bit underrated in the weeks to come and could cause a couple of upsets. So that's one to keep an eye on. Next, semi-finals, Anisimova and Kenin. Look, you really would have suggested Anisimova here, but Kenin, she really took the advantage. She's up 5-2 in the first. Then, unfortunately, Anisimova did have to retire. Finals, that means Kenin and Pegula. I think this is Kenin's first final at a 500 event in some time. But look, it wasn't essentially lopsided. Check this scoreline out, 6-3, 7-5. Well done, I think, to both Pegula and Kenin, but because of this win, and I was holding it back, Pegula just scraped over, got just enough points over Gauff. Technically, when we were looking at the rankings last week, it looked that she wasn't going to overtake Gauff, but because Gauff must have dropped some points, Pegula gained some. I didn't account for the drop in points there. So because of, I think, that combination, that's allowed Pegula to just bump ahead. I think it's by less than 50 points, but again, we'll look at that more closely later. All right, so that's the Charleston Open there, and I guess our new champion is Pegula, which is some really exciting news, I think, especially when you're considering the differences in age ranges. Pegula's, I think she's just turned 31, which really is still very, very young, but in tennis terms, there are a lot of obviously younger players. Gauff 21, Swiatek 23, Sabalenka's 26. So it's very interesting, I think, in the grand scheme of things, where Pegula is obviously viewed as a little bit older than them, and in reality, she's still very, very young. But it's interesting when you're looking at those metrics. Interesting fact is that there's actually no correlation between those age ranges and those peaks. What we're actually starting to see now is Pegula, she's playing some of the best tennis of her career, and she's a little bit older. And I think that's a really interesting and important discussion to be had, that irrespective of your age, 21, 31, you are going to peak at different phases during your career, but also your best peak may not be till a little bit later. Let's remember the likes of Nadal, Federer, Serena, Djokovic. They were all winning Grand Slams in their, late 20s, early 30s, and beyond. And each, I think all four of them were having like a pretty good peak around that time as well. It's not as though it was all done in their 20s. They just kept on going. And I'm hoping that we will see that from a number of players in the years to come, but I think it's obviously too soon to tell. But without a doubt, we will be tracking that. And we have been tracking that in the last couple of seasons, or for the best part of the last 12 seasons, in all fairness. Little bit of a detour before we move on though, but the What Is Your Game Missing series. There's a what is your game missing, what is your game missing now, what is your game missing to win? And then you've got the 7 keys that also looked at key data correlations of my ongoing longitudinal analysis of the best players in the world. This one, so My Tennis Black Book, really shared some new insights on that. But every season, certain players are tracked, for lack of a better wording. And for the last, I'm going to say 3 to 4 seasons, I have not shared explicitly the same type of data in the What Is Your Game Missing series, because I'm sitting on all this data. So the last 4 seasons. So what that says is that I've been tracking these players over that period. So when the time comes, I'm going to be able to share with you, look how these players have performed over the last 4, 5, 6 years. And these are the lessons we're going to be able to take on for the next ones. But now, if you're curious, that's what the What Is Your Game Missing series for. Sabalenka's in there, Swiatek's in there, Alcaraz's in there, Sinner's in there, all before they were number 1 in the world, respectively. And so you can track them when they were a top 10 player or a top 20 player. I think Sinner was top 20 at the time in one of those texts, for example. It's hugely fascinating. And then you leave it a couple of seasons, whether it's that 4 or 5 year gap, and we go, well, look what's happening now. And with all the data, all the 7 keys, the 8th key, this is why they progressed to win a Grand Slam. This is why this player didn't. Obviously, where I'm coming from, sharing with you on Beyond Top Tennis, all of this, I'm watching them in real time, so I know. That's what Beyond Top Tennis is here for, is that I get to share with you rather than waiting that 4 or 5 years before that next release is out there in that way, or that extension of that work. I get to share with you in real time why these players are performing, why Sabalenka got to number 1, why Swiatek most likely will switch places again. Too soon to tell, but I'm not going to be surprised if there's a switch later on this season, or if Pegula gets to 2, or if Gauff gets to 1. Why? And the explanations behind that. But what we're doing with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, it's live data implications. So if you do follow your black book, your workbook, you get to work through Beyond Top 10 Tennis and the text, which means you're prepared for when those future releases come and the implications for your own game. Okay, that was a little bit of a detour there, but Charleston's done and dusted. A little bit of a sidestep there, because I don't normally share, I think, the power of the data or the why and the publications there, because we're on different trajectories from your black book, your workbook publications, the 7 keys, the 8 key publications, and the What Is Your Missing series, and how it all circles back to top 10 rankings, winning Grand Slams, replicated success, why players win more than 1 Grand Slam, why Gauff hasn't won a 2nd Grand Slam yet, why Swiatek, she's been performing well, but a bit of a drop there, and that comes down to that coach-athlete relationship. Sinner's in there, Alcaraz, why he's had a bit of a drop. Djokovic, those drops, but still he knows how to peak. The power of periodization, it's all in there. So again, whether you're a top 10 player, top 20 player, top 100 player, top 500 player, it does not matter. Top 10 player at your local club or academy, there's a point of inception. There's a starting point for you in all of these works that have been built specifically, explicitly for players who want to track towards the top 10. And that's obviously where Beyond Top 10 comes from, because we're so much more than just 10. It's beyond that and more. All right, next one that we've got is, I'll do my best to pronounce it. I did try last week. The Copa-Cola Open, I will call it. So it's in Bogota, Colombia. Because it is, excuse me, a 125, no, my apologies, it actually is a 250. So a little bit of an oops there. I'm not too sure why I did say it was a 125. I think because the other two are 125 events. So this is interesting. Because it is a 250, we know there are more points on the line, which means that is why we're going to see the winner/finalists as well track a little bit more heavy in the rankings this week. But really quickly, Bouzkova was or is the number 1 seed here, and Osorio is the 2nd seed. I'm going to progress through to the quarterfinals here, because we've got Bouzkova and Osorio, so 1 and 2 seeds respectively, into the quarterfinals. So let's go. Kawa has upset the number 1 seed in the quarterfinals, so over Bouzkova, 5-7, 6-1, 7-5. Well done, Kawa. We've got Jean's fallen to Parija. So Parija 7-6, 6-3, 7-5 in that tiebreak there. We've got Riera over Boskovic. Neither of those players are seeded. Well done. Riera with the win there. 6-3, 2-6, 6-1. And Osorio with the win over Maria, the 6th seed, 6-1, 6-3. Well, 3 sets there. That was the only... well, that was very tight. I would say that Osorio match was the one that wasn't as tight. All right, semi-finals, which means we had Kawa over Parija. Neither of those players were or are seeded. Kawa with the win, 7-5, 6-2, which means the player who upset the number 1 seed has made her way all the way through to the finals. Then we got Riera and Osorio, 2nd seed. Osorio with the win there, 6-4, 7-5. So Osorio through to the finals. Interesting or noteworthy, I believe Osorio has won this event back-to-back previously, if I read correctly, and the final, Osorio over Kawa, 6-3, 6-3. And I believe that's a 3-peat. I do believe, if I was reading correctly, Osorio has just secured 3 back-to-back. I'm just going to check if that is correct. No, I don't think they're going to. Wait, hold on. They might show us. They very well might. No, so that's actually incorrect, because if we're going back to 2023, Maria won in 23. It may have been her 3rd attempt, but no, Osorio won in 24. So Osorio won. Bouzkova actually, same seeds. Oh, well, Bouzkova was the 1st seed. Osorio 6th seed this time last year. Osorio did win, so it's her 2nd. So it's her back-to-back. I'll just double check to make sure that was correct. But no. All right, so that's back-to-back. So Osorio was able to defend her title, I believe, on home soil, which is always a bit of a nice touch there. So well done to Osorio, but also Kawa to progressing through to the finals of a 250. Next up, we do have, again, I will do my best to pronounce this, the Open Internationale Femení Solegones. It is in La Bisbal de Empordà, Spain. I do believe I did not pronounce that correctly. So as always, I do apologize for my mispronunciation. All right, we did go over some of the first round results last week. So I am going to kick off with the round of 16 second, but it is round of 16 because only a round of 32 draw. Lies is a number 1 seed. So remember Lies from the Australian Open. I think she really made a name for herself there as that lucky loser. And Rus, the 2nd seed, she got through to the 2nd round, but she has fallen. So Rus has fallen to Bolsova 6-3, 6-4 in the second round. And Lice has gotten through. I'm just going to double check this is a 125 or potentially it's a 250. No, it is a 125. So just checking, and it is clay. So these ones have been on clay. All right, so all the way through to the quarterfinals now we're going to track Lies was upset by Udavari, the 8th seed, 6-4, 2-6, 6-3. Cornet, I believe this was her first match back. She obviously retired last year, couldn't keep herself away, but she has come back. But only because I'm curious, I want to see those early results because we did have a skip, which means, look, Cornet got through the first round, second round, and then she's fallen in the quarters 6-love, 3-love to Galfi. Okay. So tracking back through to the quarterfinals again. Okay, because we did get a bit excited. All right, so Lies has fallen to Udavari. I've just shared that. Cornet's fallen to Galfi. Well done, Galfi. And then we've got Semistaja got a win over Maristan Zoleta de Reales. 6-4, 3-6, 6-2. Well done to Semistaja. And then we've got Bolsova over Werner. Well done to Bolsova, 1 and 3 there. Right, on to the semi-finals. We've got Galfi, good win over the 8th seed Udavari, love and 5. And then Semistaja over Bolsova, 5-7, 6-4, 6-3. And in the finals, we've got Galfi and Semistaja. And Semistaja, congratulations. I believe this could be her first title. 5-7, 6-love, 6-3 there. And I'm just going to double check if it's going to take us to, I think this must be her first title because her profile has yet to be updated with her new title win. So that's exciting there. So well done there to Semistaja. All right, the last event for the WTA this week is the Megadasi Hotels Open. Those of you who have been reading, I think, the episode knows the Megadasi Hotels Open. There's, I think, been about 3 or 4 of them termed the same, so titled the same, all in Turkey over the last month, I believe. So if you are tracking back to early episodes over the last couple of weeks, it isn't a double up. They're just called the same event for some reason. I don't have the answers for that. Okay, so we will go over, it is another 125. Bondi is the number 1 seed, and we've got Martic is the 2nd seed. Martic did fall in the first round. I believe we did talk about that potentially last week. Bondi did get through the first round. So we'll get through to the semi-finals. But Bondi did fall in the quarters to Sierra. We know 2nd seed did fall earlier. So semi-finals, we've got Sierra, the 8th seed, over Sharma, 6-1, 6-love. And then we've got Romero Gomez over Worth, 6-3, 6-love. And the finals, that means we've got Sierra and Romero Gomez. Sierra is the only seeded player there. Well done to Sierra, 6-3, 6-4. So another player, I think, that was not anticipated to obviously walk away with the title this week. And I believe this is her first title as well because her page is also yet to be updated. Both of our winners of the last 2 that I've just touched on are ranked outside the top 100 for these 125s, just for perspective. All right, I'm going to Billie Jean King Cup. It is going to kick off in a couple of days, so nothing to report on, but I'm going to see, we've got the qualifiers. So Group A, we've got Canada, Romania, and Japan. Group C, B, my apologies, is Czechia, Spain, and Brazil. C, Slovakia, USA, Denmark. D, Australia, Kazakhstan, Colombia. E, Poland, Switzerland, and Ukraine. And then F is the last one, Great Britain, Germany, and the Netherlands. That's something we will be able to touch on next week. But I've just noticed something that we can actually touch on. Let's go back to A. So Canada, Romania, and Japan is actually going to show us key players there. So from Canada, I'm going to say their top Canadian, Fernandez, is not going to be playing in action. Osaka's missing from Japan. and no, Romania, I'm going to say Bogdan, I believe, so is missing there as well from recollection. All right, Czechia, Spain, and Brazil. All right, so Haddad Mayer, she is actually playing, so that's a good sign there. Czechia, so there's no Makova or Kvitova, but Noskova's playing, so that's noteworthy. That could potentially be a jam-packed team. We know Czechia's won multiple times previously. All right, Spain, there is no Badosa there. That is a noteworthy absence. I think a lot of players are taking the next week as a bit of a reprieve. All right, so C, Slovakia, USA, Denmark. All right, so Torsen is playing, and I think Torsen is Denmark's top player at the moment, so that's a good sign. Slovakia, no, so there are, from recollection, a top 20 player from Slovakia is not coming to mind at this stage, but we might track back to in the rankings. USA, okay, wow, we've got a jam-packed team because Collins and Pegula have committed to play. That's going to be interesting because Pegula's coming off a very big week. That's going to be interesting. Potentially, I wouldn't have been surprised if Golf was going to step in purely because Pegula's been playing a lot of tennis lately. Collins has as well, but Pegula, my apologies, definitely has been playing quite a bit. All right, D. So we do have Tomljanovic for Australia, Joint Hunter, Birrell and Perez. Noteworthy absent obviously is Kazatkina, newly top 10, but I think she does have to wait a little while before she can represent her country at Fed Cup level. Colombia, Osorio is there coming off her title win, and Arango. All right, Kazakhstan, Rybakina is in, so that's good to see. I think Rybakina is in action, and so is Putintseva. So I think that is actually going to be a bit of a dangerous combination having those two together. Okay. Poland, Switzerland, and Ukraine. We did hear about Swiatek not playing, but look, Linette's playing, but I'm not seeing another player on the tip of my tongue. So if Linette's not playing, another player ranked around the same ranking range and is so Linette is, and my apologies, I have a blank here, but there is another player, and I'm going to kick myself when I do come across them because there's been two. There we go, Fretch and Linette right in front of me. So Fretch is not playing. That's a little bit surprising because I think if Fretch and Linette were playing, that's a good mix without obviously Swiatek because they're both around top 30. But I think Linette, and look, Carlo has come off making in the finals the past week. Shabalenska's been playing some good tennis, so that's going to be interesting. Switzerland, noteworthy absence would be Benchik. So Benchik is not there. Gulbik is there, Teichmann. And Ukraine, Svitolina and Kostyuk are both playing. So that is going to, I think, be a very, very tough team there as well. So we've got the US, I think, Ukraine and Kazakhstan presenting some really strong teams. I'm sure I'm missing a couple in that mix as well. All right, last one is Great Britain, Germany, Netherlands. Bolter's playing, which is great to see. Cartel up and comer. Germany, we do have Lies, so that's going to be good. And Seigman, Netherlands, Lamens is there. Could be missing someone, but I think Netherlands, the men's had been performing quite well this season over the women. All right, so that's it, I think, for the Billie Jean King Cup. I'm interested to report on that next week. And let's head on over now to the rankings. We'll try and go relatively quickly through because there aren't too many bumps or big ones here. But look, Montgomery, welcome to the top 100. So she's ranked 100 in the world, 5-point progression there. Seigman's back 7 to 95. Bondar's up 591 in the world. Jadoni's back 588. And we've got some smaller movers. that have been happening over the past week. We're going to sidestep them. Rakhimova 9-point regression to 83. Sakkari, I did touch on this, an 18-point regression. She's now 82 in the world. I cannot remember the last time Sakkari was around that ranking range. Because I'm curious, let's head on over more specifically to her rankings. Let's have a look at what's happened. The last time I'm going to say Sakkari was ranked outside the top 10 was 2020, ranked 20 in the world. Last time she was, we need to go back to 2018, so 7 years ago when she was ranked 41 in the world. 2017, 52, and 2016, 9 years ago. So Sakkari would have just been, she was 89 in the world. So we go 9 years ago, Sakkari was 21. So when she was 21 years of age. So that has been a while that she's been ranked, I think, where she is now. I still believe Sakkari can get back there, but she definitely has lost the 8 keys. Sakkari, if you're tuning in, or if you do know Maria personally, please send her to be on Top 10 Tennis. You're most welcome to reach out, because you've been a top 10 player. You've been on the cusp, obviously, in the deep ends of those 1,000 events. And I definitely believe I can get you back inside the top 10. We do know that a couple of our keys are absent from your game at this stage. All right, Tomljanovic, good progression, 8-point progression to 79 in the world, joints up 3 to 78. More 4s and 2s. I'm looking for that 5. All right, Christian, 9-point regression, 66 in the world. Next we've got Buskova, 7-point regression to 58 in the world. A little bit surprising there. Osaka steady at 56. Polonina Kudermetova, she's up 4 to 55 in the world. Her sister's just ahead of her at 52. All right, top 50 is Azarenka. So she's got a 3-point regression this week, and so she's sitting at 50. I'm going to have a look. When was the last time Azarenka was around this ranking range? We've got a little bit more time this week up our sleeve. Let's have a look. The last time we're probably going to look at, so 2019 she was 50 in the world. But that said, I believe that when she took maternity leave, because 2017 was bumping back to 208, and that was primarily because, I believe, again, maternity leave. So obviously her ranking did just drop there. But other than that, we have not seen Azarenka outside this ranking range for, a number of years. 2017 to 2024, no, okay. We have to go back to 2006. Wow, that's almost 20 years. That's 19 years ago. Azarenka was 92 in the world. So I would say arguably before she was starting to peak, 19 years ago, that is crazy. Azarenka would have been, I think, 17 years of age. All right, so a little bit of fun there. All right, back to the rankings. Top 50, Pavlyuchenkova's up on 49, Vondrasova's 48, Raducanu's 47, and Benchik's 42. A lot of these players should be inside, I'd say, the top 30. Bulter's 40. Gadalic back 4 to 39. Sophia Kenin, so she's up 10. This has to be her highest ranking, I think, in the last 18 months, if that. So she's up to 34 in the world. Collins, she's taken another big hit. This is that's a big one. A 10-point regression to 32 in the world. I think this is Danielle's lowest ranking, maybe for 18 months, in all fairness, because before she obviously won, I believe it was Miami last year, she was ranked maybe around that ranking range, but this is a bit of a hit there. Callum Skater, 2 points up, 31. Top 30, just small movers, nothing's really significant. Biggest is Alexandrova, she's up 4 to 22. Everyone else is either up 1, 2, or just back 1, nothing too much. top 20, very similar, not too many changes. Kazakinis back 2-14, and Schneider's up 1-13, and Makova's up 1-12. Interestingly, I think as far as points are concerned, Makova's separated by Navarro by 800, over 800 points in the ranking. So that's a bit of a gap there. However, Navarro and Rybakina, they are only separated by, it's looking like less than 20 points. That's how close they are. And as far as Rybakina and Badosa are concerned, so they're 10 and 9, they're also separated by less than 20 points. Zheng is at 8, so the separation there is around a bit over that 400. So that's really where the gap is. And then Andreeva's about 500 points ahead of Zheng, and a bit more, only about 100, a bit more. Paolini at 6. Collins, my apologies, Keys, around that 200, not quite point there, but this is the biggest change we've seen this week, switching between Pegula and Gauff. Pegula's up 1, Gauff is back 1, so 3 and 4 respectively. No big point changes with Sabalenka and Swiatek. That's still roughly that 3,000 point gap. That's a really big one. That said, like I said, I think last week, if Swiatek performs well at Wimbledon and the lead-ups, but she does have a lot of points to defend. Sabalenka does too. She played really well on clay last season. I think a lot of people may be forgetting that. So I think both players have a lot to defend. Obviously, Swiatek, the French Open, Sabalenka, the US Open. So there's a lot there. And Sabalenka finished last season very strong. Swiatek did not. So we could see a bit of a change like we did last season if Swiatek plans carefully and finishes the season strong. So that's still all in the mix. It could be very different, but similar also, Gauff didn't pick her game up until end of season as well. So I think there's a lot of leeway for a number of these players. Paolini, obviously, tough to defend back-to-back finalist results. Other than that, I think it's going to be really interesting the next couple of weeks to watch. We could see a dip in the rankings if Swiatek doesn't perform on the clay, which you really need to favour her to perform well, but anything can happen, and if that is the case, you've got Pegula and Gauff right on her heels. Even Keys and Paolini we could put into the mix there. All right, that's it for the WTA Tour this week. Let's head on over to the ATP Tour, starting off with, I want to say it's Houston, the Fayez Sorafan Men's Clay Court Championship. So it's over in Texas. We did touch on round of 32 results last week. Well, I'll say some of them, not all of them. So let's kick off with round of 16. Paul is the number 1 seed. Tiafoe is the 2nd seed. Paul with a win over Garin, second round, so round of 16, 2-6, 6-2, 7-6, 10-5 in that tiebreak. Smith over Quinn, 3 and 4, qualifying wildcard there. Tabilo the 3rd seed, but Brooksby's the qualifier, and he has upset Tabilo in the round of 16. A 3-6, 6-4, 7-6, 10-6 there. Djokovic over Donali, 3 and 3. Nishikori was the 8th seed, but he was upset by Eubanks, 6-1. And then it looks like, unfortunately, Nishikori did have to retire. Nakashima, 4th seed, good win over McDonald, 6-1, 7-5. Mitchelson over Mannarino. Mannarino was a lucky loser there. Mitchelson, 5th seed, 6-7. And that was actually Love 7, 6-4, 6-2. And Tiafoe, good win over Walton, 7-5, 6-3. All right, on to the quarterfinals. We've got Paul getting through there over Smith, 6-1, 7-6. Brooksby over Djokovic, 2-6, 6-3, 6-4. Eubanks has fallen to Nakashima, 4 and 4. And Tiafoe with win over Mitchelson, 7-5, 6-1. You know what's really interesting here? Every single player is an American representing. We had a little bit of a diversity there in those earlier rounds, but quarterfinals is absolutely all players are US. All right, so semifinals means we've got Paul, Brooksby, Nakashima, Tiafoe. So the good news is we've got both 1 and 2 seeds in the semi-finals, but Brooksby qualified, has upset Paul in the first semi-final. Look at this scoreline: 6-7, 5-7, 6-3, 6-7, 6-10. I'll say that again: 7-6 to Brooksby, 7-5 for that tiebreak, 3-6, and then 7-6 to Brooksby, 10-6 in that tiebreak. That is neck and neck. So well done to Paul, pushing him, but even, kudos to Brooksby, pushing I'll say a top 10 player, even though Paul's just outside. He's still, I'll say, top 10 status, but that's a huge win for Brooksby, if not the biggest win of Brooksby's career that I'm aware of. Tiafoe, good win over Nakashima, 6-4, 7-6, 7-3 in that tiebreak there. And as far as the finals concerned, Brooksby did not stop with Paul, so he is upset the number 1 seed in the semi-finals and number 2 seed in the finals, 6-4, 6-2 over Tiafoe. That said, both players, I believe, are going to notch up a couple of extra points this week. All right, that is the men's clay court champions done in Texas. Over to the Grand Prix Hassan. I do believe this one, they're all 250s before we head on over to Monte Carlo. Griekenspor is the number 1 seed here and Sonigo the 2nd seed. We touched on a couple of first round matches last week, so I'm going to move straight onto round of 16. Griekenspor with a win over Karina Busta, 7-6, 3-6, 6-3. Bellucci, my apologies, over Herbert, 2-5. Muller over Darwin, 6-7, 6-1, 6-4. Majorak as a qualifier over De Jong, 7-6, 6-1. Caraballas Baena over Vertanen, 4-4. Borges over Colonon, 6-2, 3-6, 7-6. That was 7-love in that tiebreak. Darderi over Gaston, 2-6, 6-2, 6-3. And then we've got Kopriva upsetting the 2nd seed in Sonigo in the round of 16, 6-2, 5-7, 6-4. Few upsets here. All right, quarterfinals. Griekenspor still holding strong, 3-4 over Bellucci. Majazak over Muller, 5-4. So the qualifier just upset the 3rd seed there. And then we've got Carlo Baena, the 5th seed, over Borges, the 4th seed, 4-4. And then Darderi, the 7th seed, got the win over Kopriva, 5-2. That means as far as the semi-finals are concerned, we've got 2 or 3 seeds, my apologies. Griekenspor, the number 1 seed, got the win over Majazak, the qualifier, 7-5, 7-6, 7-3, the tiebreak. Other semi-final is 5th and 7th seeds respectively, Caraballas Baena and Darderi. Darderi, however, got the win, 3-2. Finals, look, Griekenspor, the number 1 seed, made the finals, but Darderi, he was too good. But check out the scoreline, 7-6, 7-6, and those tiebreaks scored 7-3, 7-4. That was neck and neck. But well done to Darderi, but also Griekenspor, I think, holding up his own. All right, over to Bucharest. We've got the Tirac Open here. Baez is the number 1 seed, and he's been playing some really good tennis lately. And Martinez is the 2nd seed. And it is, again, it's a 250. I shared a couple of matches last week, so we're going to again move on straight to the round of 16 here. All right, so Baez, he's through over Diallo, 7-6, 2-6, 6-2, 7-5 in that tiebreak. Comasana over Portis Agut, the 5th seed, 6-4, 3-6, 6-3. There's a lot of 3-setters being played the past week. Jari, the 4th seed, he's been upset by O'Connell, 6-2, 5-7, 7-6, 10-5. Vukcevic, he's upset the 7th seed Navone, 4-6, 6-4, 6-4. Misalovic, a qualifier, he's upset Ugo Carabelli, the 8th seed, 3-1. See, that's nice. That's a nice straight set there. All right, Gasquet is a wild card. He's fallen to Caboli, so Caboli's keeping that momentum. 3rd seed 6-4, 4-6, 6-1. Zerma over Giano, a wild card, 6-4, 3-6, 6-3. And Martinez, second seed, he played Wawrinka with a wild card in the round of 16. Martinez got the win there, but still, Stan pushed him to 3, 4-6, 7-5, 6-3. I still enjoy watching Wawrinka play. All right, on to the quarterfinals. Baez over Kamasana. I believe this was a final or thereabouts a few weeks ago, but well done to Baez. 7-6, 7-5, 2-6, 6-1. Fuchsovic over O'Connell, love and 4. Kaboli over Mislovic, 7-6, 6-4. Zerma over Martinez. So Zerma's upset the second seed, Martinez 6-1, 2 love. So Martinez must have had to retire. Look, as always, I do apologize for the mispronunciation. I am sure there's a number of names here that I have not or am not pronouncing correctly. It is not intentional, so I do apologize. As far as the semi-finals are concerned, we've got Baez over Fuchsovic, 2-2. Kaboli, third seed over Zuma, 6-3, 6 love. Which does mean the finals, we've got the first seed and third seeds. Third seed Kaboli has upset the first seed Baez in the final, 4-4. Wow. All right, so well done to Kaboli. But look, Baez, he also held up his end. So similar, I think, to what we just touched on in the Grand Prix Hassan. Griegesbol was upset by Darderi, and now in Bucharest we've got Kaboli upsetting Baez, both number 1 seeds. Okay, the last 250, no, that was all 250s that we have touched on, which means it's time for the Rolex. So Monte Carlo Masters 1000 event. It's interesting that it is placed here because we've just had back-to-backs, obviously Indian Wells, Miami. Bit of a reprieve the past week, then straight into Monte Carlo. WTA Tour, for example, they have, I think, another this week and the following week before they have their 1000 events. So this is interesting. We're not going to go into the qualifying. We're going to dive straight into the first rounds and then have a bit more of a deep dive, I think, into the draw specifically, because we do have a lot of the matches, and we do have ATP has provided a better view that we can have a look at. All right, so the top 8 seeds do all have bye. So Zverev bye first round. We've got Berrettini over Navone, 4-4. Berrettini is not seeded. That is a dangerous first match for Zverev. Lecheka over Korda, 6-3, 7-6. That's 9-7 that tie break. That's surprising. Would have potentially said for Korda to get through there, but well done to Lecheka. I tell you what, Czechia's men's and women's, they're playing phenomenally this season. We've got a lot of up-and-comers. Okay, Mazzetti, 13th seed over Boo, a qualifier, 4-6, 7-5, 6-3. Rune will play Borges. So we've only got, I'll say, maybe half a match of the matches done. They will be playing live as we are coming to you live today. Rune, Borges, again, will be interesting. Need a favour Rune there, but I don't think that's going to be an easy match. Sinigo will play Martinez. Thompson's got a win over Mapesh Pericard. That's almost an upset, but they are ranked around similar ranking ranges, around that top 30. 6-4, 6-3 to Thompson. Tsitsipas with the bye, and then Djokovic with the bye. Wawrinka and Tabilo. Tabilo has got the win over Wawrinka. He got a wild card, which was nice. 1-6, 7-5, 7-5. Still, you know, Stan, he got that first set 6-1, but then Tabilo was too good. So I still think Wawrinka, look, he has his days where he's still got it, which is great. All right, then we've got Verichos, the wild card, has upset Struff, 2-1. Jari and Dimitrov will play first round. Medvedev was pushed by Kakanakov. I mean, this is a tough first round. This could have been a quarter-final. Well done to Medvedev getting through over Kakanakov. He really needed this since he's been bumped outside the top 10 last week. 7-5, 4-6, 6-4. Muller, good win over Ugo Carabelli, who did qualify, 4-4. Macaque will play Baez in the first round. Dimonor with the bye, Draper with the bye. Garon over Shapovalov. I think this is maybe an upset or thereabouts. Similar ranking range at the moment. I do believe Shapovalov could be a little bit higher than Garon, but well done to Garon, because look, he's been playing some really good tennis late last year and this season so far. 6-3, 7-6, 7-5 for that tiebreak. Echeverry and Monte will play off. David Fokina, wow, look at this scoreline. He has upset Shelton, the 11th seed. This upset may provide a little bit of an opening for the likes of Paul and Rune, who are ranked, I believe, just behind Shelton. So look at this. That is, I think, a very interesting scoreline, to say the least. Shelton got the first set in a tiebreak. Look at this, 6-7, 2-7. And then David Fokina, the next two sets, 6-2, 6-1. Well done, David Fokina. Tiafoe and Kekmanovic, they will play off. Popper and Humbert will play. Bautista Agut and Nakashima. Rudd with the bye, Rublev with the bye. Monfils, good win over Marizan, a qualifier. 4-6, 6-1, 6-1. Lakjovic and Kaboli will play. Greekensborg and Fils will play. Look, Greekensborg, he's got some momentum after making the finals last week. Could be tough, but still need to favour Fils here. This is another big upset. Altamar qualified, and he has upset Ogur Elisime, the 16th seed, 7-6, 7-5, 6-3. Gasquet wildcard has got a huge win over Analdi, 6-4, 4-6, 6-4. That's a nice win for Gasquet. Serralundo got a win over Fognini, who got a wildcard, 6-love, 6-3. And then Alcaraz has that bye. All right, so there's probably like 50% so far done, a little bit more. So it probably will be wrapping up today, the rest of those matches. But let's have a peek at the draw. So I've looked at it. We've taken a bird's eye view here. Zverev, Berrettini are going to play next in the second round. That's going to be, I think, one of the biggest second round matches. Dropping down, then I'm looking at the seed. Thompson Tsitsipas is going to be tough. If Macaque gets through over Baez, so Dimonor will have him second round, tough. Giron and Draper. Giron, that could be tough with Draper. Other big ones, I think, are noteworthy just for the second round. We're just focusing on the second round here because we've had those upsets. So I'll say relatively that's it for the second round. Moving through the third round, we are actually looking at Mazzetti and Zverev in the third round. That will be a big one. That is one to watch. Then potentially we've got Rune and Tsitsipas in the third round. Just checking. Third round, round of 16, quarters. Yeah, no, that's correct. Just in case I was wrong thinking that was a round of 16, but no, these are third rounds. There's going to be a lot of impressive third round matches in Monte Carlo. Djokovic could play Dimitrov. That'll be a big one. Medvedev and Dimonor. Wow. Draper, and because Shelton's been upset by David Fokina, so that draw's kind of open for Draper if he can get through. Tiafoe is looking to play Rudd there. Rublev, he's got Monfils. I missed that. So Rublev and Monfils in the second round. But if Rublev does get through, that is going to be a Fils. And then Ogur Elisime is out, which means that's opened up the third round for Alcaraz. So a lot easier in his draw in those earlier rounds over Zverev. All right, let's have a look. Potential round of 16s. Let's say Zverev and Mapesh Pericard's out. So that is a potential Tsitsipas. But it is clay. But Zverev's very good on clay. He made the finals of the French last season. Djokovic we're looking at, and Dimonor for the quarters. Draper and again, and Rudd. Rublev and Alcaraz. I'm liking Alcaraz's bottom half and his chances here, and he could collect points to get closer to Zverev if Zverev does fall early. Obviously, as far as I think the quarters are concerned, we're looking at Zverev and de Minaur. That would be really interesting. So these are semifinals. And then Draper potentially, and Alcaraz. I could be off here. There's obviously Djokovic is in the mix. By all accounts, I'm just dropping down through. This is going to be tough. I think we better pause at the quarters there, because there are very big matches, and I don't think, as far as the quarters semifinals are concerned, that doesn't really track. So we'll pause there at the quarterfinals, but that's a lot. That's going to be really interesting. All right, so a lot of points on the line. Let's head on over to the rankings, and we can have a little bit more of a preview as we get towards the top 10. All right, starting at 100, McDonald's there, steady at 100 there. All right, so Faria, he's back 4 to 99 in the world. Kopriva, welcome to the top 100, 11-point progression, so he's 95 in the world there. Slight movers, 1s, 2s, 3s. Vukic is back 7 to 83. O'Connell's up 5 to 82. Just small movies, nothing significant at this stage. Navone is back 9 to 70 in the world. Bellucci's up 5 to 66. Nishikori's up 1 to 65. Carabella's Faina, 6-point regression to 57 in the world. Smaller movies, okay, Dardaria, 9-point progression to 48 in the world. Not many too bigger movies this week. Monfils, look, he's back 244. Lots of 1s and 2s out there. I won't share them all because there is a lot of just slight movement. Look, here we go. Thompson, he's back 3 to 38 in the world. And Garon, so he's at 45. Just looking at those rankings that I shared a short time ago, Monte Carlo. Baez, he's up 3 to 33 in the world. Tabillo's 32. Nakashina's up 2 to 31 in the world. All right, so top 30, Mapesh Perikar, he's at 30. Then Shapovalov, both are up 2. Same with Checkers at 28. And then Poprin's at 27. They're all at 1. Hercax is the one that's taken a little bit of a hit, 4-point regression. So he's at 26 now. Look, this time last year, we know he was firmly inside the top 10. Kakanov, 25, and Quarter 24. Then Menzik all up 1. And same with Ceralundo, up 122. I think Ceralundo has been very quietly making his moves in the top 20s. Well done. Macaques at 21 there. All right, so as far as the top 20 is concerned, we're not seeing any movement between 20 and 11. A little bit of a switch in the points in 14 and 13, so Shelton and Paul, but not much movement. All right, so a little bit of a correction because Paul, it looks like, is not playing Monte Carlo. That's really interesting. I did not see Paul's name there. Shelton is seeded 11. So we've got some players, even though Shelton's 14 in the rankings and Paul is 13. Granted that Shelton obviously did lose, that might just increase the gap between Shelton and Paul. But all players from 13, 12, 11 have been top 10. Paul, Rune, Medvedev. But as far as points are concerned, Alex needs to perform, I think, in Monte Carlo, because there is less than 100 points separating Medvedev and de Minaur, and obviously Medvedev is sitting outside the top 10 just. Rune, however, he's really closely behind, only 20 points behind Medvedev. That's a big one. But as far as Paul's concerned, well, there's a little bit over 100 separating him from Paul. So he's still within reach by all accounts. As far as Shelton's concerned, he's just a couple of hundred behind, about 200-300 behind there. All right, right, top 10, slight change between Draper and Rudd, 6 and 7 respectively. Draper's up to 6 and Rudd is back to 7. But look at these points over the past week. Look, for perspective, similar to the WTA Tour, Sinner's on 10,000 and something, Zverev 7,000 and something. Very similar to the separation between Sabalenka and Swiatek. Obviously, the difference is Sinner's been out of action. Zverev's been playing, but he hasn't really been able to lift his game the last couple of weeks, or the best part of the last probably 6-7 weeks now. But Alcaraz and Zverev, there's about 1,000 between, a little bit less actually this week. Fritz is, he's within reach. I'd say about 1,500 roughly between them. And Djokovic is 700-ish between himself and Fritz. Bit more behind Draper, but within reach, I would say. Not quite 2,000. Not quite. Sorry, my apologies, there's 1,000. Actually, that's closer than I thought between Draper and Djokovic. That's very interesting. Draper, I think, is in a very good position to knock up the points because he won't have as many points to defend around this time last year. He will in the later end of this season from when he really picked up pace, but not essentially in the first half of the season. And Rudd's got a couple of points to defend on the clay. He made a number of finals this time last year along with Tsitsipas on the clay. So both of those players are going to be susceptible if they do not live up to that level of play, but they are comfortably, I'll say, inside the top 10. Rublev, there's definitely a question mark there, but I just did read that he does have Marat Safin on his team he's not too sure for how long. That could be interesting. That might be the shift he needs. Otherwise, he is looking like still dropping outside the top 10. Alex, look, he was more firmly inside. It's going to be interesting to see what happens because you've got the likes of, I think, as far as points are concerned, Tsitsipas, Rublev, Dimonor, Medvedev, Rune and Paul, they're all within striking distance of one another, within, less than 200-300 points. They really can, and that's a big separation. That's 40% of the top 10, and then dropping obviously outside. Very similar what was happening on the WTA Tour this time last season, and I did share that, and I have shared the why, etc. about that in my tennis black book. Really important. Before we wrap up today's episode, you should be, if you're on your black book, up to week 2 of block 4 tasks. Page 110 this week with your respective levels, what you should be following, and the episode you should be listening to this week if you are following your black book. If you are, please let me know and how you're going. I'd love to know how that has been so far working for you this season, because we are, well, almost a quarter of the way in, or we are a quarter of the way in now, which is really surprising, and that has, I think, come along really, really quickly. All right, we're going to wrap up today's episode on that. We've done all the rankings, both WTA Tour, ATP Tour, Monte Carlo is underway. Billie Jean King Cup will kick off at the end of this week. Otherwise, WTA Tour has a little bit of a reprieve this week, which is by all accounts nice, because the schedule is absolutely jam-packed for both tours, and I think both tours deserve a good 1-2 weeks rest every quarter, or a good, I'll say, 10 days at least to reset. And there should be more than, I would say, 4 weeks at the end of the season. I would argue that they should get at least that 8-10 week break. Finish up in, say, October, November, December reprieve would be nice for them. All right, so thank you so much for listening. To grab a copy of my new release, My Tennis Workbook, or my December release, My Tennis Black Book, Federer, Nadal, Serena, Djokovic, you can find them on AIM International or Amazon, so irrespective where you are based in the world. For any comments or questions, head to AIM8 or Topic Thread, or leave comments directly on YouTube or Spotify. To interact with Beyond Top Tennis, catch up on our blogs, or sign up to my newsletter, all links are in the episode notes, as well as how to access Pink Octopus books to Sprue. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, and all of the above beyond top 10 tennis exists for you, so please consider sharing us near and far. And if you're serious about heading towards the top 10 or want to know what you're missing to secure that maiden Grand Slam or more, don't be shy and come and say hi. All right, on that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I am your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next time.